Now let me elaborate on the idea that there is indeed a link between what we feel and what in the end we do. So the so-called affect behavior link. The idea here is that the things that we feel, the affect that we experience, influences a whole lot of the things that precede behavior. So the cognitions that come in the process before we actually do something. So here there's just an overview of how, just to illustrate this, affect can influence what we spend attention on, what we even perceive, and how we process the information that we have perceived, how we then store it in our memory, and also what we retrieve from our memory, how we evaluate consequently our surroundings, the judgments that we make about what is happening around us, and ultimately then the decisions we make about our behavior and the behavior itself. And of course, all these things also interact with each other, right? So attention can interact with memory, and therefore affect can influence also the interactions between these individual pins in the puzzle. So the idea is that affect can influence which information is processed and how it is processed. For instance, we recall more happy memories when we are happy than when we're sad. Or when we're sad, we might judge persons and events as more positive than we are happy. The thought contents that we have going on can depend on our affect, because we build associative network models, right, of what comes to mind. So if lots of happy memories come to mind, then clustered around these, there will be more happy memories that are easily activated in our memory networks. Sometimes we use the way we feel as evidence for what is going around in the world. This is called affect as information. So we use the answer to the question, how do I feel about XYZ? How do I feel about online lectures? How do I feel about the weather outside? To give us information about the object of the information. So if I feel good about the lectures, then it must mean they are good. If I feel bad about the weather, that must mean the weather is actually bad, right? And sometimes we experience something like congruence between the affective state that we're in and the information that we retrieve. So if I am in a happy mood, then I'm more likely to retrieve information from my environment that kind of confirms my happy mood. You might remember this from the positive test strategies. So in saying affect influences which and how information is processed, what we can also see is that affective states can influence the use of our prior knowledge, because this comes down to the idea that different memories are activated, right? So if my cloud of memories that is being activated is full of happy memories, I might use knowledge that relates to these happy memories in my everyday interactions while I'm in this state. Affect can also influence whether we rely on a processing mode that is very much characterized by using heuristics, stereotypes, or scripts, or it can put us in a mental state, sort of, where we don't rely so much on these heuristics, stereotypes, or scripts, but we would rather be in a more deliberate kind of mood, I almost want to say. Now, why is that the case? What are potential explanations for affect influencing our behavior? There are three explanations that we will work through. The idea that affect influences the resources we have available cognitively, the idea that affect influences the motivation for us to process, and the idea that affect influences the value of different types of information. So if we say affect influences cognitive resources, what we mean is being in a happy mood might simply take up space in our cognitive capacities, or being in a sad mood might do that. And because the affect already takes up space, there's not a lot of stuff left, or not a lot of like muscle power left over to do other calculations, other cognitive processes. That would be the explanation for this first point. The second explanation, if I were to elaborate, what does it mean if affect influences the processing motivation? Well, it might be that when I'm in a happy mood or in a sad mood, I just couldn't care to think through this problem bit by bit. I would rather just find a quick solution. So here, what is meant is that whether or not we're motivated, we're interested in engaging in effortful processing, or if we're rather interested in finding heuristics or quick and intuitive solutions to our problems, that might be influenced by affect. And the third explanation, to go into more detail, affect influencing the value of different types of information. This goes with the idea of congruence. For instance, so if I am in a happy mood, happy information or information that makes me feel happy, might have more value to me because I try to keep my happy mood, right? On the other hand, if I'm in a negative mood and I want to get rid of it, then I might be looking for positive information in my surroundings so that I can disconfirm this uncomfortable state. So different types of information may have different value for me, and therefore be more or less likely to receive my attention and my processing brain power because of the affective state that I'm in. Yeah. Next up, we will work through a couple of these ideas and see how affect can influence what we do and the cognitive experiences we have.